Just about 6 weeks ago, my next guest laid out a message of unity for the entire Republican Party, maybe for the whole country for that matter. And he did call out Democrats that are dividing the nation. Joining us now for more on his vision for the future, we welcome friend, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Senator Scott, welcome, sir. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. And, you know, I got to tell you, I thought, first of all, yours was the best speech rebutting a State of the Union that I've ever heard. All right, and I've been around. I don't know. I've been around so long, I practically go back to the original State of the Union message in the 18th century. And the other point, the other point, Tim, that was so great about it was optimistic. It was really, really optimistic, and that's what I want to focus on. But I must beg your indulgence right now. Everybody's talking about the summit with Putin and Biden.
Yes.
And I just want to get your quick take on this. We don't know everything yet. We've heard Putin's press conference. We haven't heard Biden's as of this taping. But how is Biden doing on the world stage? Is he tough enough? We've gone through the G7. We've gone through NATO. We've gone through now the Putin summit. China's on the way. Your rating of Biden on the world stage?
You know, it's hard to rate him fairly because I think he's not doing a very good job on that international stage. So from my perspective, if I was to rate him, I'd give him a 60 on a scale of 100. You have to be strong with your adversaries, and you have to be strong against your competitors. Clear examples of the lack of the strength is that when you withdraw the Keystone Pipeline, when you say you're not doing any exploration in Anwar, what you're saying to your adversaries and your competition, whose economies are driven by 60 or 70% of their GDP is energy related, you're giving them a pass, or you're actually strengthening their stronghold from a global perspective. We are the most energy independent nation on earth when you think about coal, gas, and oil. So we should be leaning into our assets, not leaning away from our assets. That puts us in a compromised position. Think about the Middle East, frankly. We've seen more flare-ups in the Middle East. We've seen a re-engagement in thinking about the JCPOA. That's that's the issue that was under the Obama administration, where we tried to hold Iran back from going into the future with nuclear weapons through some agreement. Didn't work well. They were already cheating within the terms of the agreement within the first couple of years, having mid-range ballistic missile testing. So the truth of the matter is that when you see what the bad actors are currently doing, to go back and say you can make a good deal with a bad guy, it hasn't ever worked in recorded history. Why in the world would it work now? We should already know these things.
I mean, you know, Senator, it just strikes me, who's running who here? Coming out of the G7 for a moment. So to your point, you're exactly right. Climate change is like the biggest issue for the G7, and it's the biggest issue for Biden. In fact, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he actually said climate change first. That's the Biden motto. So between climate change, which is being dictated by the Paris Accords, which is coming out of the G7, and the other one, Senator Scott, is taxes. You've got Biden and Yellen actually going to the G7 and the Europeans and saying, what taxes should we impose on the United States? And by the way, they ain't lower taxes, they're higher taxes.
Much higher, Larry. And you're the expert. I mean, you think about the quintessential person for taxation and economic activity. Go no further than your show and you, Larry. You know this so well. So let me just, listen, I was a fan of yours and Steve Moore before you were on TV. So this is not just kind complimentary words. This is based on fact and a path forward that you've been talking about for a long time. Let's take both issues and flesh them out a little bit. Taxation. The Biden administration wants to take the capital gains tax from where it is today, around 23.8%, to a high of 43.8%, said in a way that impacts every single consumer and employee in America. They're going to take the first 2 or 3 rungs out of the ladder towards success and make it harder for kids growing up in impoverished neighborhoods, challenged by the system that is in their neighborhoods. We're going to say it's harder for you to find a job because all the job creators, we're going to take the capital away from them. And we're going to have a system of redistribution and blame That's their objective, that's their goal, and that's their path forward. At the same time, you have said, Mr. Moore has said, that empowerment and opportunity is the way that we create a better America for all Americans. I leaned into that concept. The Trump administration leaned in on that concept, and what happened? Well, the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans in the history of the country, Hispanics in the history of the country, Asians in the history of the country, a 70-year low for women. For those without college education, it historically low. So we proved that your approach to empowerment and opportunity actually works. The Biden administration is going in the exact opposite direction on taxation, and they go to the OECD, our competitors, and say, let's have a race to the top.
Yeah.
And the OECD says, we're racing to the bottom. They are consistently out of step with our competitors. Why have an anti-competitive position on taxation when we're going to lose more jobs? Couple that with their approach to the environment. It takes about 14 to 17 days, I hear, for the air in China to come back to America. China says we're going to figure out this Paris Accords sometime after 2030, while you all in America go ahead and destroy your jobs, send them to China, where there is no regulatory reform, no regulatory regime over the environment. If you care about the environment, make it in America. It's tough, but we have rules. They don't have any at all. So both issues points to America.
And if this G7 tax hike stuff goes through, China will have lower tax rates on corporations and capital than the United States will. China will, because they're not going to go in with a high minimum tax of any kind, and they're not going to go in with some excess profits tax. China will have lower taxes than the United States will. That is not the optimal position.
It's the worst position, and frankly, when you think about the competitive position that we are in globally today, it's mediocre at best. When you know that China, India, and Ireland all said, you guys have a great conversation about raising taxes, we won't participate no matter what agreement you all reach around the world. So we can be a part of 130 countries perhaps that say we're going to raise taxes, but our biggest competitors say that's ridiculous. I hate to say this, but they're right.
Folks, for part two, where Senator Scott's going to address the left's push for socialism in the USA.